Please join me in welcoming Sean Penn and Dylan Penn. Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you so much for coming out, and thank you for this movie.
My father lusted after freedom. The kind of freedom most free people never experience. Dad, what do you do?
I'm an entrepreneur.
To start things off, it's such a beautiful film. Sean, when you talk about, I'm curious, was the idea always to direct and act in the film, or how did you get started on the project?
I got started on the project when I was sent the script over a decade before we made it, and there was immediately, I think by page 30, I had Dylan's face imprinted on that role, and it really in a unique way. And I was at that time asked if, given the opportunity, to direct, act, or do both. And I never thought that I would want to direct myself. You know, that directing such for me, such a joy to do. Why would I want to do something that's not always a joy to do when I got the job? But as time went by, you know, every film has its own journey, every script, and to the point where it's finally made. At first, she was just very reluctant about doing it. And she can speak to the reasons for that. And of course, I was not, inclined to push it. But I was not able to conceive of the movie without her in it at that point. And so we just, told the people who control the rights, thank you, but you should go make your movie. And then, finally, all these years later, she felt ready to do it, and we did it. And I didn't answer your question. So, yeah, I was going to do it with her and an actor playing her father.
Okay.
And what happened was just sort of a fluke.
Why were you reluctant, and what brought you around?
Yeah, I mean, the first time he approached me with the project, I was like 15 or 16. And I read the book, and I loved the book, Flim Flam Man, which is what Flag Day is based off of. And but I actually thought that he wanted me to read it because he wanted me to help cast it. And I actually remember thinking, like, Kristen Stewart or Dakota Fanning would be so great for this role of Jennifer. And then he asked me to do it, and I just, acting was something I never wanted to do. And I always wanted to be in the industry, but always thought I would be behind the camera, which is something that I still aspire to do. But yeah, it was a pretty solid no fucking way at 16. And then almost 15 years later, I'm 30 now, so I was like 27, 28 when he came back to me, and there was this other actor attached. He was going to direct, and I just felt like, what an amazing role. Like, it was just something I felt like I couldn't pass up, and I felt like I had gained experience from my own life that I could refer to in terms of coloring the character of Jennifer. And then especially after meeting her, it just felt like, what a privilege to tell this story. And then, he had to sign on as actor, and that was also really, it was like, I think 30 days before shooting.
Oh my God.
So it was a real adjustment. And honestly, my mom was the real one to be like, we've had our differences, but working with your dad was the best experience I've ever had as an actor. You should do it. So I did it.
Amazing. It's incredible to hear that both of your stories there. Having just seen the film and seeing you together and how fully you embody both of those parts and the chemistry you have. I was thinking about, in music, there's that term blood harmony, when family members or siblings sing together. And you guys, this is blood harmony on the screen there. Your scenes together are just so electric. And this was your first time working together, right? Mm-hmm. So. And that just came together 30 days before shooting. That's crazy. So, Sean, I'm curious to hear your experience with that. Like, and two of your kids are in the film.
Yeah, my son, Robert Jackson.
Can you just talk about that? Like, I mean, as an actor, as a director, and as a father,
Yeah, I mean,
the
way I can put it briefly is that I'm an insomniac, but I sleep well when my kids are close. And, and in my day-to-day life, they visit quite frequently and we see each other, but having them trapped close to me while making this movie was, I think, the stresses of acting and directing, because I'm not really built for multitasking. I do it, and it stresses me out a lot. And a lot of other aspects of my life, I do it, but I really like to make the movie experience as pleasurable as possible for the actors, and I think that it would have not been a good time in life to be anywhere too long away, and just missing them. So that was great. The other thing that was great about working with them is that, and in particular Dylan, because she is the movie, I didn't ever have to negotiate the ego politics of the two actors. I could say, okay, I feel I've served what I need to serve, and I should be in second position because it's Jennifer's story. And so as soon as I felt after a couple takes, okay, I could focus all my attention on covering Jennifer and covering Dylan as Jennifer. And so that actually was I hadn't considered how much energy goes into navigating two egos until I had an opportunity not to.
Dylan, one of the things that struck me watching it tonight was how it feels there's just the strongest through line in every scene that the two of you have together, where you just want to tell the truth. You just want him to come clean. Like, you're there kind of with open arms and an open heart, but you just want him to drop the facade. And it's kind of continues the whole time, maybe until the end when you're like really becoming a journalist and pulling away a bit. But could you talk about how you found that, kind of the emotional through line of this for you? And
I mean, I think it really helped talking to Jennifer. We spent quite a bit of time together, and I think that what was so amazing to me about her is that she has this, or had this amazing ability to forgive her father after he passed. And I think that is one of the strongest things that human beings can do. So I felt like, I guess to really get back to your question, I feel so lucky that I have a transparent relationship with both of my parents. But I think there is a certain point where you feel, especially as you get older, that some things weren't told as complete truths, and you just need to know what the baseline is. And with her, it was so different. She was blatantly lied to for most of her life by a father that completely and wholeheartedly loved her. So that's a really confusing thing. I guess I've had that with other relationships, so I think I drew from that a little bit. But really, it was just talking to her and hearing her speak about, in such a vulnerable way, about those times that he lied to her, and knowing that he was lying, and also being so strong as a teenager to confront him and still not get that truth in return, which is, I think, why she went to journalism, because that is a truth seeker's job.
Yeah. Sean, were you able to, in researching John, was it basically off the book, or was there footage of him, or?
No, interpretively, my first contact with this project was Jez Butterworth's screenplay. And it had landed so strongly on me, and he had worked very closely with Jennifer, so I knew that I could, that I was pre-licensed for the whatever poetic license he had taken. Then I read her book, which is so beautifully written, and because I'm a bit of a music and narration dependent director, I think, and I like that kind of style. I guess style's not my favorite word, but something, whatever that is. I've loved movies that are, full of music and narration when it's well done. And I was able to. So in that moment where I was revising the script, because at some point as a director you have to kind of bring it home to you, and not rewriting it, but in this case the writing was so good, all I did is look for scenes that I could do visually or do with music, songs as an additional character. And so I was able to reduce things to that way. But in terms of the choices about John Vogel, I felt very connected to it from the first read, from that point of view, before I knew a tremendous amount about the real fella. So this is more from the script as licensed by Jennifer Vogel.
Nice. Well, since you brought up the music, I'd love to talk about that. The music in the film is incredible, and the songs from Glenn Hansard, Eddie Vedder, and Cat Power are amazing. Could you talk about sort of how they came to be part of the film? Did they read the script? Obviously you informed them what the film was about.
Yeah, I'm pretty practiced in this answer, so I think I'll get it done fast and clear. I'd had such an extraordinary experience with Eddie Vedder on Into the Wild, and in that case, I would be in the editing room and I would get these files of songs in, and I would take what I was using it as temp out and replace, and it was just one exciting moment. He just got it, And so I don't think I can read a script anymore without first thinking, oh, I'm going to see, if Eddie's part of this, and if he will be. So, but in this case, I needed a female voice. I didn't approach this the same way as Into the Wild, where it was consistently one voice. But I had been so enamored of movies like The Graduate and Harold Maude and others that use songs in such a beautiful way. And so, knowing we would ultimately be, because there was To Be Reflected was also John, so male voices could come in, but dominantly female. And so I asked Ed basically if he could kind of curate this thing. And he brought in Glenn Hansard, and they started writing songs, and then we were looking for who would be the right female voice. And I was listening to every great singer anybody's ever heard of, and every great singer nobody's ever heard of, while studying the script. So I'd have the music playing, and like I say, when I read that script, I saw Dylan's face, and there was that, her emotional nature. I couldn't find the voice that represented it. So I called her, and I said, who should I listen to? And her first answer was Cat Power, and I had not heard Cat Power before, and I was so excited by it. It felt just right. And Eddie had worked with her before, so then that happened. And the three of them wrote and performed songs, and then right at the very end, you may or may not know that end title song is Eddie Vedder's 16-year-old daughter singing that song. Yeah.
Incredible. She sounds amazing.
She is.
Wow. So let me ask, the production, did the film shoot before the pandemic and then you were doing post during?
Yeah, we ran right up to the line. I cut at my house. I've got a little cutting room in the backyard. And, we were doing that, myself and the editor, the masks and the doors open, before the shutdown, and just trying to be. And then it just became clear that this was going to be a really serious problem. And we were nearly locked. So she is Icelandic and had been away from her family throughout the shooting and then into the post-production. Is an older woman, and we were all concerned she would not be able to get back because Iceland may close off, and flights might shut down. So I had what I would call housekeeping to do. And I would be able to do that with an assistant editor and just little changes that I wanted to make by then. And that editor, who's brilliant, is Valdis Óskarsdóttir, who had done Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind and did some other things with Gus Van Sant, was the one that... So it was a unique experience for me because I'd never worked with anyone but Jay Cassidy, who was not available. And so in this case, I'm not working with Jay, I'm working with a woman, and she's not American, and it's a very American story, and it was so great what she brought to it. Showed me things that were surprising and so on. And then I locked it up with an assistant, and presumably we were a locked movie. But because of COVID, I got involved in other things, and we wanted to hold out so that we could have a period of exclusivity in theatrical distribution. So, yeah. So and fortunately, MGM was willing to do that. But that's afterwards by the time. So in all those months where I was thinking about anything but the movie, it really got me fresh, and I watched it again, and I thought, gosh, I'd really like to go back into this a little bit. And I had just seen Queen's Gambit, and Michelle Tesoro, who cut that, was available and wanted to do this. And I said, let's take a look at that. So I ended up with these two brilliant female editors, and had the benefit of some time to just step away from it.
Wow, that's amazing. I do want to ask a question that does not have to do with the movie, but the other stuff you were working on during COVID. But I'm curious how it relates to the film. I mean, your organization, CORE, has been, yeah. I mean, you're working internationally, but in LA, the work that CORE has done throughout the pandemic is monumental, and initially without any government support. And how did you? It might even be a crazy question to ask, but how did you balance that with finishing a feature film? I don't know how you.
Well, I didn't. I mean, we shut down we locked the movie, and going back into it, this last story was also only partly because I had producers that were willing to try, see if we were going to get theatrical distribution, to not just sell it off to streaming. I'm sure, had I made this movie with Warner Brothers, this movie would have come out a year ago, but only streaming, right?
Right.
So, what I thought would have been nice, which is a one-stop shop and not have to go through all the meetings with all the different financiers that you puzzle piece together, turned out to be the biggest blessing because we had a lot of people with a limited investment, and so they were all willing to take the chance. And I don't know what the original. So I had locked, and then it was a complete and total shift of gears. And like I say, I did not think about the movie for months as we started this. Initially with the testing, and then the vaccination. And then, it was after, because I have an awfully good team. And so after, I'm a door kicker and, have a couple good ideas in the beginning of this stuff, but it's built by the team. And so once things were up and running, I could mostly only get in the way. And I was able to start thinking about the movie again.
Yeah. Wow. Dylan, could you, I'd love to hear more from you just about your experience, once you were in production. Did you grow up going on set with your father and seeing him in that creative work environment, or what was it like for you once you were fully making the film and working together in that way?
Yeah, I mean, it's very different from just being a guest on set. I did grow up going on set with both my parents, and I was asked this earlier today, like, how much fun was that growing up on set? And it's like, it's so boring. And really, even as an actor, like, he said this before, like, your job is hurry up and wait. It's waiting to do the job, you know, that you get paid for. So I never, even though I, as I said earlier, like, I was always interested in being in the industry, I guess, like, watching him on set was not something that particularly interested me. I was a bit older, like 15-ish, 14, when he made it into the wild, and I really loved that story as well. So watching him direct, and also I was madly in love with Emile Hirsch at 14. So that was an easy, like, let me come into the editing room, please. And I did notice him as a director, and that was initially what made me aspire to want to be in the industry behind the camera. Mm-hmm. But working with him is a completely different experience. As a director, he's so unbelievably focused, and like he just said, he kicks doors down. He does that with everything he's passionate about. So even though this was an independent film and we were very limited financially, nothing stopped him from fully, he never was unable to complete his vision, no matter what it was. So as someone that wants to direct, that was something that really inspired me. And then as an actor, I was nervous because we've never worked together, and I think in any profession, you don't know if working with your family is going to be a great thing or a disaster. And I was just nervous because I just didn't know. I know he's a great actor. I know he's a force. But as soon as we sat down, the Chinese restaurant was the first scene we shot together. And as soon as they called action, I felt like, oh, this is going to be so much fun. Because he gives so much. So it's really a gift to play opposite him. And it just, I think because we are close, that lent itself to the film. Also, a relationship with a father is complicated no matter what. So I think you can see that as well. But I really, honestly, just had so much fun playing with him as an actor.
I mean, that really comes through. There's so many different colors. I love that scene where there's humor, there's unexpected humor, there's like you're that kind of tenacity, the way you keep asking questions, the way the drug conversation goes. I mean, it's really, it's so rich. It looks fun. Do we have maybe have time for a couple questions from the audience? Yeah, down here in the front.
Hi, good evening. I have a question about your DP. Fantastic DP. Just wanted to know why you decided to work with him and what was your collaboration with him. Because it was shot beautifully, the color, I mean, I felt like I was back in like the late 80s, early 90s as a kid.
Yeah, so Danny Motor is the DP, and Danny and I were neighbors, and many years ago, I had seen several of the things that he'd shot, and most of the work that he'd done was for television, and what was being asked of him seemed not to be exploiting his biggest talent, because he was doing side films of his own that were really adventurous and beautiful, so there was another movie several years ago that I was briefly preparing, and that Danny and I decided to work together the first time then. And then that movie was another one of these situations where I got very connected to one actor that I wanted, and I couldn't make that situation work, and so I didn't want to do it anymore. And so that didn't happen. And then as soon as I had, another movie to make, I called Danny, and I was, aside from what I think is the beautiful work that he did, he was a real brother in arms in the sense that because I was acting and directing, when something was when I could always look and trust his instincts about things. So yeah, that was a real, I made a very good choice there, Danny Motor.
Yeah, right here. Last question.
What was the decision behind using the drawings?
Behind, I'm sorry?
The drawings.
Well, that was in the original script. John Vogel also, in reality, was quite an artist, which I think certainly led to his abilities in the counterfeit world. And it's interesting, the drawings that were John Vogel's drawings were for the film done by his other daughter. There was he has another daughter that, for what reasons of her own, didn't want to be portrayed in the film version of this. But she had a hand, I guess, very similar to her dad's, and so she came in and did those drawings for us.
Actually, I do have one last question. Your hair in this movie is so amazing. Like, when you get out of jail, there you have numerous good haircuts in this movie. But like, I think the best is when you see him when he shows up with that paper and he's got the head that's short on the sides, the kind of rooster thing. It's amazing. Yeah, it's not a question.
But I do have a response to it, which is in the nature that I am a narration and music dependent director. I'm definitely a hair actor. I mean, it's always key for me.
Absolutely. Great. Well, Sean and Dylan, thank you so much. It's great talking.
Thank you very much.
Congrats on the film.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you, everybody.